that approval.
Okay, everybody. Oh. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nope, anybody opposed? Thank you. Sorry about being rookie here, but we'll try to make this and stuff. You're saying we have an appointment?
So the mayor has asked me to present before the board. We have his written statement, filled vacancy left by Gary Smith. In Ward 1, we would like to appoint Patrick Fahey, Alderman, finish the remainder of the first-year term left. That would be until the people.
So we'll get a full term and just get the first year term? You,
I'll do a motion and then second.
I think it makes sense. The mayor's recommendation.
You're considered, so it's without even considering to the mayor's appointment.
Move to the consent of Patrick Fahey as a board one alderman.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Patrick, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
If there's any issues that any of us have been here that we could bring you up to date on, please ask.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think we have any presentation of warrants or personal appearance, so I'll just right down to the city administrator.
We have an updated report for you. Item 1, something we need to discuss a little bit. Street painting's underway, so we've done Weiler, Moreau, Yegg, working on half of Lynn. We ended up with a problem on another half of Lynn, and that is because of the sidewalks and the way they're set down there. And there's concrete instead of asphalt adjacent to the sidewalks. So trying to put asphalt and then tie them into the sidewalks to improve the possible. Some of the sidewalks are level with driveways. So we're looking at needing to mill that area. This would be an extra amount on the contract. I have not brought that to you because I didn't get it until earlier this week. But are you willing to go forward with that? I'll bring it to you as a change order with jokers, do the milling. It'll be the bottom half of Lynn from where the culvert that runs through the street. That's kind of where we stopped it at this point, and then we'll take that all the way to the ocean. It ends up being about $23,000 extra. I'll bring it to the next meeting. Let's see. Mayor and I are part of an Eclipse Committee for 2024. Chamber's kind of been organizing it. Dina's been putting meetings together. We've had one meeting at this point. So we're trying to get local businesses, the county's part of it, others, putting some activities together for Sunday, like a bunch of music and food vendors, drink vendors down at Valley Schools in the desert. And then the next day it would move out to the county, and it would be at the at the community center and the water park, utilizing those parking spaces and the open spaces up there. So it's just underway at this point. Last time that we had an eclipse, the city covered all of the events and venues with city insurance. So we did the additional insured on other people. Does the city want to do that again, work with Lake and then to use our umbrella policy to cover these events, such as at Valley for this project, or at the county, or with those that are also involved, covering this event? We did a lot more last time. We're not organizing it like we did the last time, but there are some things that we were in charge of, and I think this committee is going to probably ask of us. So I'm just kind of seeing where the board wants to go with it now.
Remember what that additional cost was?
It wasn't listed there. It was just I saw the certificates of insurance. I don't think it would be that much because you're just looking at a couple of days in a short period of time. But it would potentially be an extra cost.
I'm okay with it. I mean, you're not going to get a lot of those people to show up if they don't have, the insurance coverage.
Right.
So, and it's too costly for individual vendors and whatnot to do it themselves. So.
Right.
But I mean, as far as the county property, I'm sure they're.
I think they'll probably cover themselves. I'm looking at mostly the Valley funds, or at least that event that goes on in the city limits at that time. Any other feedback?
I agree with Joe.
Okay. We'll work it through that. Anything comes up, you'll make a decision about it.
Happy back to topic one. I know we employed Cochran as far as testing the asphalt and stuff. Have we ran into anything there? I mean, they're actually testing the asphalt quality.
Right, and it's not all the time, but they're spot checking it. But they've also been there during the operations of the construction and beforehand to kind of get an idea where water needs to be flowing, where there might be some issues. So they've been doing some of that as well, so that we know these problems are coming. Cochran was probably the first group that saw this problem with the milling. So we went down and looked at it, and then brought jokers in, and then said, well, what is the adjustment? Give me that number, and we can take it to the board. So they've been watching over the project and watching over what Jokers is doing there. And it works because they're also down here for the water line that we're working on.
Right. Steve, have you had any concerns with anything they've been doing? The contractor.
Any concerns I've had, I've ran through the inspector with Cochran, and everything's been addressed at this point.
Okay, good.
That's all I got.
Okay, I think that brings us to staff reports, and Kenny?
Good evening, everyone. You should have a copy of my report in front of you. One big thing I'd like to bring to your attention is we had 33 calls last month. That brings us up to 186. As of yesterday, we're at 199. Last year, we ran a total of 224 in the entire calendar year, so we're headed probably for a 250 call a year this year. In our apparatus, I mentioned that we did all our annual testing. We have to do certification testing on different things. Everything passed first round, no problem. So maintenance staff over there is doing a really good job of keeping things up and running. And then in my miscellaneous section, we did a PR out the library, and we did move a truck and some manpower down to Perryville to help cover for a funeral of one of their firemen. And then we also had some acknowledgement on KSTK's Facebook site, which surprised us, for our dog rescue. Somehow or another they picked it up and it's on their Facebook site. So one of our firemen, Justin Donovan, has now rescued a beagle off a cliff and a little poodle thing out of a storm drain. So it's kind of comical or fun. One thing I do have in there, and I'd like to pass a couple pictures around, is I've asked that the board consider, whenever you close streets, anything more than a one-block area, if they put tents on the street, that they all need to be on one side of the street or not. This was down next to the Lions Club Park at a recent festival, and police and fire, our police and EMS can walk into a scene if they need to. If I have a fire in a building down there, I need to be within a couple hundred feet of that building. There's no way I could have gotten a fire truck through there. And with the parking the way it is, there's no way I can make turns to even do a turn to another street to try to go around those things. So if I would have got down there and found that blocked, I'd have had to back all the way back out to 3rd Street and come down Merchant Street or something. So I would like the board to consider that if there is tents in the street, they all have to be on one side, not blocking fire hydrants. And where we have the islands, like on Merchant Street, they need to be on the same side as the island, so it doesn't limit our access. Our trucks are 8 foot wide, so we need quite a bit of room to be able to get through there.
Didn't we pass something
That's
like
right, I
that
thought that,
before?
yeah.
We had that problem with Jordan Fett too,
Yeah.
didn't we?
That's actually what that was.
Oh, that was.
I thought they had that at,
We had talked to it with the previous chief, and I thought we had an agreement with Jerdafet, but I didn't know if it was part of the city's rules or regulations for that. But if it isn't, I would suggest it be added to that. If not, that's something I think needs to be addressed, because we do have to get a truck in there. There's no way I could have got a truck down to Main Street on Market that day. So something to think about as far as access for us. Chances are we wouldn't have to go down there, but as soon as we say we don't have to go down there, we'll have something, and then we'll be in a world of hurt. So
We have addressed it.
I thought we passed something on that already, but we need to enforce it if we did, but otherwise we need to get something on the books and make that known to.
Because that's
Is there a
actually
checklist
booth
for?
space. That's actually booth space that was probably rented and paid for, ahead of time and stuff, so that's
Yeah,
something.
but this was years ago that
Right.
Kenny had talked to us years ago about it, and I thought we took action on it, or maybe we're just talking.
at one time, Jerdafet was actually on both sides of the street, and we actually took 2 of our trucks at the time through Jerdafet, because a couple of our trucks had doors that opened gull-wing style, and we couldn't open up the doors on the thing because there was booths on both sides. And the old saying of, if we need to get in there, we can get in there. Yeah, but we don't want to be in this position where we're knocking tents over and everything else and causing problems for people. So it'd be better to be proactive and have it addressed ahead of time before we run into a problem with it. So
Kenny, is that something that you could look at ahead of time whenever we, somebody proposes a street closing, that you could be in that loop and have to sign off on it as?
I could be in the loop and I could sign off. The problem is going to be when they actually start setting the thing up. Because I can say, yeah, I agree to it, and then they set a tent up after I've agreed to it, and I don't know that unless I go down through, and
Right.
that's how I found that. I went down and checked everything.
It seems like we
they
just
do keep you in the loop,
advertise with
they-
everybody that's holding the events and let them know that they can't put tents on both sides of the street.
Yeah.
Do we have a checklist per se for an event organizer for some of the rules?
I mean, we got, on our franchise permit, it talks about what they can and can't do. We just don't go through a checklist ourselves. I don't remember seeing labels on the other side of the street for tents, so I don't know if they just moved across for whatever reason and didn't stay on that side. I don't know.
Directly across from the first ones that you see in the picture is the hydrant too. So if they had moved across the street, they'd been blocking a hydrant too. I don't know if that was a Jerdafet thing or if that might have been a private property owner allowing in the street or something. I don't know, but that could have been a problem if we would have had a call down there. That's what I just want to bring to your guys' attention, that I think we need to address it for future festivals.
Okay.
Anything else? Questions?
I had one question about resource utilization. We had an employee fall on the third floor, was unable to get up, fair amount of pain, needed transport to get off the third floor into the emergency room. So I called the non-emergency number. Ambulance came. I think there were 4 paramedics came in.
They had 2 that day. We got called 2 to help.
And 3 police.
Yeah.
And the fire truck. Is that the standard?
It depends on the call. Most of the EMS calls in town, we don't get dispatched for. We get dispatched for unconscious type people or cardiac arrest and things like that. Yeah. Or if they have a lift assist, they call it, where they're going to be on a 3rd floor or something, we have to help carry them down, or they're in an awkward position. The police department, I can't speak to it. I know that if they're not busy, a lot of times they'll go to help, because sometimes they can do it without having to call the fire department. And I hadn't mentioned yet, but welcome aboard, and you're welcome to come over and visit us. We're over at Firehouse every Wednesday night doing maintenance. I encourage you to come by and take a tour and get to know the guys.
Kenny, what's the status of our suburban situation?
It's in the agenda. The Suburban, the old one, after I think there was 57 emails altogether, we finally got them to agree to total out the old one, and they have sent us a check, and we have the check in hand now. I've given it to Sue for the replacement. The old one has been towed away, and I do have a request in front of the board to purchase the replacement from Barley Chevrolet, which is a local, or Barley Automotive now, a local dealer, and it is in there. I also had requested a board's permission to use the funds from the insurance adjustments to help offset the cost. The Suburban, there is $40,000 that we had approved for, excuse me, extrication tools this year that we're not going to use, so we have $40,000 sitting there, and the cost of Barley's was offering was just a little over $40,000. So, and the Barley thing, I do have tons of paperwork here if anybody wants to see it. Barley gave us a Carfax on the vehicle. It's no accidents. And it has a good history on it, and the price that he's actually quoting us is $1,300. I think it is below the Carfax estimated value. So he's given it to us at what I consider to be a good deal. And I've been searching for months, and I did hopefully included a spreadsheet of local ones and within so many miles of what was found. So I'd like to go ahead and purchase the local vehicle. Once we get it, we're looking at probably a 2 to 3 month turnaround before it goes into full operation, because we have to send it off for lights and decals and everything, and we know that how long it's taking the police department to get there. So we're planning on using the same outfitter, so it'll be several months before it's in full operation. Any other questions? Thank you.
The tourism report also proceeds. Visitor counts are down about 6% for this past August compared to last year, but we're up compared to 2021. Short effect crowd was estimated at around 15,000 people this year, so good turnout, better Saturday than Sunday. Next up is Oktoberfest this weekend. Volkswagen Parade on Saturday morning, starts at 11, and there's also the History Conference this weekend at the Community Center. We'll be advertising in the magazine Food and Travel this fall. This is an expenditure approved by TTC and TAC. Second round of interviews for the tourism director will be next week. We've had some late applications that I want to talk to the folks first, and then I'll get my group together. We hope to have somebody hired by October 1st. Working on a 3-day bus tour program with Perryville, highlights the historic buildings and the wineries. Haven't heard anything yet from that, but I don't think it's been published yet. That should happen in October. Facebook likes have increased by about 600 since last August. Instagram followers are about the same. We haven't been doing much on Instagram, so I understand that. Website's showing some better ratings from Google. Our company that we hired to make the improvements, Jay Rudney, says what we're showing Google's rating as is actually pretty good. So getting people to the website and they're able to check out what they need to. So we have fewer broken links, off the pages, and we're showing 5,500 clicks in 28 days. So that was good. So That's a lot of folks checking it out. We had a lot more people check it out, especially in August, because of Sugar Fall. It's the biggest driver. Any questions?
All right, that brings us to public comments. Public comments. Yes, for the approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second, first, and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Brings us to old business, bill number 4580, an ordinance authorizing the mayor into the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission easement for upgrading the pedestrian facilities along Route M. Second reading.
Move to approve.
First. Second. And now we go to roll call.
Alderman Gray.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Ivy.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger. Yes. Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Bill number 4580 now becomes ordinance number 4502.
Brings us down to new business, bill number 4582, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the city of St. John and the St. John County 911 Tax Emergency Services Board for the county to provide 911 dispatching services for the county in 2020.
So your question was, there's two parts of it. One was the cost of what we're paying for the next 3 months plus the past 2 months. It's till 2023. However, the agreement is till 2025. So that was that was what your question was about. So the agreement's still till 2025. Have to come back in January with it, or December with the new agreement on what the cost will be monthly for the 911.
So looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Have a first. Second. Have a second. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed?
I'd like to move for a second reading of bill number 4582.
Bill number 4582. Roll call vote. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Bill number 4582, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the city of St. Genevieve and the St. Genevieve County 911 Tax Emergency Services Board for the county to provide 911 dispatching services for the calendar year 2023.
To make a motion for approval.
Second.
We have a first and second. Do a roll call.
Alderman Gray.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Ivy.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
We have 7 yes votes, 0 no votes, 1 absent. Motion carries. Bill number 4582 now becomes ordinance number 4503.
Thank you. Bill number 4583, an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the City of St. Genevieve for the fiscal year 2023 budget relating to various revenue and expenditure increases.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Bill number 4584, an ordinance approving a memorandum of agreement with Alliance Water Resources Incorporated, a Missouri corporation, to modify the initial professional service agreement dated August 12, 2010.
Discussion. Happy to, I sent you a question, an email, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. I hadn't checked to see if you responded back.
So, since 2011, the increases have been, and it was also part of the agreement that was a limit of 1 to 3%. So most of those percentage increases before were 2.4, 2.5, 2.7%. The last increase was 3.6. Was this one 3.6? No, this is 3.0. The last one was 3.6. Yeah. So the new contract allowed it to go, the increase to be between 2 and 4%.
If there's no other discussion, I got a motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That brings us to bill number 4585, an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, approving the annual budget for fiscal year 2024 and approving an effective date.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess there's no other business. Given a motion for adjournment.
It's time for discussion. The stormwater issue down on Highway M, I know you were going to talk to Alliance. Is it in the work session?
It's on the work session, yeah.
And then you covered most of the ones for committee meetings. We had a tourism meeting 2 weeks ago, and we talked a little bit about the only thing that Happy did discuss was the opportunity to present to the county commissioners a bed tax. So we're moving forward with that. Countywide right now, we have one in the city, but we're going to possibly ask for to institute that countywide for a bed tax. I think that's maybe the only thing from that tourism meeting that we didn't that you didn't update in your tourism report. And I wrote sidewalks. Anything with the mill down there with sidewalks? Has anything changed with?
We discussed it. He's not in favor of it, but he's willing to work with us on patching that, getting the sidewalk replaced, and then we'll see what happens in the future.
I had one thing, if Steve could come up for just a second. I know you're not on the committee thing, but we had a situation in my ward up off 5th Street back some time ago, and I don't know how much can we talk about that, or?
I mean, I think in all terms, I mean, it's a public works project.
Okay.
It's a private project, but it's in public right.
Right. That's kind of an unusual situation up there, and Steve, if you can kind of fill us in on what has happened and what needs to happen.
Local resident had a sewer issue. Extremely long sewer lateral runs down to Jefferson Street from 5th Street. Homeowner or property owner hired a local plumber to perform the work. Local plumber subbed out an excavator, contractor for the excavation work. Repairs have not been completed to the street.
So those lateral lines even though they're on city property in a lot of cases, are not our lines.
In any of the cases, unless it's sort of city-owned property. Laterals, sewer laterals are homeowner's responsibility up to and including the connection. So,
But I mean, that's different than just a typical main out in the street and that line running from the property to the sewer main. That sewer line from the end of the property to the sewer main is the property owner's
Correct.
responsibility,
yes.
regardless of where it goes. And we have several of those unique situations like there on Fifth Street.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long service line. We have some where they have shared laterals. They're all pre-existing conditions, yes.
So who is responsible for repairing the street then?
Property owner,
If they have to cut into it, they have to repair it, right?
yes. I believe you have to do that sometimes.
So I noticed there's a pipe sticking out of the ground there. I mean, is that going to stay there, or that can't stay there, can it?
That's a clean out for the private sewer lateral. We don't typically have sewer clean outs in streets, no.
So it's something we just need to.
Well, it may come down to the city repairing it and then charging back the property owner. And we'll have to, with that clean out, we'll have to cap it properly for, because it's in the street, so that it doesn't break or get broken by traffic.
Yeah.
So it's not just another plastic cap that goes on top of
Yeah,
it.
it may need a manhole lid and frame on top of it, asphalted in and sealed, where you can lift the lid and have access to it still. But PVC pipe sticking up in a rock pile is not acceptable.
And does it tie right into the main right there, right?
On Jefferson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a foot away from that clean out?
Probably,
3 foot?
it's probably 8 or 10 foot.
It is at a point where technically by the ICC, you would have to, or the plumbing code, you'd have to put in a clean out.
Yeah.
Because of distance. But, yeah.
Yeah. And I think they opted to put it there due to the fact they didn't want it in the lane of traffic on Jefferson.
That was just my first in that situation with the lateral and stuff, and I went up there when the homeowner called just to see what could be done and how to take care of it, and I think that was resolved. So, good. Thanks, Steve. Good. Any other business? Have a motion to adjourn?
So good.
Hey, I'll second that tonight.
Nobody asked them if they want to actually do it.
Would you like a break, or would you
No,
like to
no,
go?
you got, no.
You got a motion and a second.
You got a
Oh.
motion second, so you got to go through the motions. Yeah.
Did you approve?
Sure. Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Yeah. Ouch.
We're there.
Told you I was a rookie.
Now you can ask them, do you want a break or want to go right after the work session?
I think we can go right in, I think.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
He's there.
Nope, he's gone. Okay. Yeah, so that's what it is, reflect that he's not attending this work session. Approval of the agenda.
Hey, we have approval of the agenda for the work session.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, it looks like we've got 2 business items.
All right, first up is, we had this at the last meeting, we had some discussion on the ditch that is behind the houses on Rozier and the trailer court that's on Donzie. I sent this question to Mark, and I've included his opinion in your packet. That was one of the questions. The other was the cost. Alliance has contacted a contractor to give us an estimate on what it would cost to make the improvements. We don't have a bid back yet. Still waiting on that. We've contacted them a couple times. They're busy with other projects, so I don't know what that cost is. However, you have an opinion in front of you that it is not a requirement that we do it. It does not have a proper easement, and,
It was brought to my attention by quite a few people after our last meeting, people that have watched it, that we recently just went through this exact same conversation with some residents at Valley Springs, and we held the position that it was on private property and that we don't have any interest in doing that, or we can't do that. Unfortunately, this is the same type of situation, and I would see some authority, some precedent going forward with doing one, but not doing the others. Even some of the residents in my neighborhood just recently spent a lot of money to fix drainage in their yards, and they inquired if we're going to set a precedent and do theirs, then we might reimburse them for theirs as well. So we're looking at a big change course of what we've already established in our method of operation as we go down the gallery drive.
this is not just as simple as them going in there and clearing it out. There's a lot of things that we would need to do to make it right. Properly. So whatever they did 10, 15 years ago, luckily nothing was damaged and there wasn't any issue. Because back then there would be all the other items.
I tend to agree with all the prints, but at the same time, we're going to run into more stormwater issues, so eventually this is going to have to be addressed. Maybe the private residents have to do it. I don't know, it's affecting a lot of people. It's going to turn into a bigger issue if you're not going to get all those private landowners to do it. I think there's a point with this, like I said, as it stands now, we probably shouldn't.
We have ordinances in place that if the residents don't do it on themselves, that we can, they would be in violation of the city ordinance of that program.
It really comes down to a property owner's issue. It was between the property owners to make sure that it flows correctly.
There's nothing in the stormwater.
If they blocked it, then it would be an issue.
We'll find your maintain it as a fact property.
Yeah, eventually you get that.
There's the definition of blocking, there's some shrubs, some trees. Some landscaping, or was it blocking the stormwater?
Well, I have to agree with all the press. I mean, like we stated before, I like to help out as a small town, as many people as we can, but, when you set a precedent, you set a precedent. That could be interesting. And I guess the comment here, that it appears from the property owners that most of this situation is all on somebody else's property. That's kind of the exciting factor for me. Second item we have is improvements to the ferry landing.
So the Rotary Club has a milestone anniversary coming up, looking for a major project to do. Alderman Steiner has been spearheading this, many meetings have been attended about what Rotary is trying to accomplish and what the city to participate. He's we got more details, more understanding of what they're trying to accomplish, then we'll take the floor and discuss it.
Yeah, so the Rotary's coming up on their 50th anniversary as being formed in St. Genevieve. So one of their benchmark goals is to have a project to kind of signify that anniversary is coming up. And one of the biggest blighted areas, troublesome areas, sore eyes that we have, of course, is how do you get people to the river safely and as a good experience for visitors and guests and citizens alike. So the Rotary would like to work on a project with city or other corporate entities, other civic, social organizations, and finally do something with the eyesore that is the ferry landing right now. Now, it's not in city limits. It's not city-owned, of course, and so but we've kind of addressed some of those things that we think we can get an easement from the two different property owners, potentially. Some of it's owned by railroad, some of it's owned by Mississippi Lime. The project would consist of doing some engineering, having a parking lot paved, maybe some beautification parts like some benches and some tables that could handle some flooding or be removable if it was major flooding, and then maybe some signage or some historical signs out there to kind of signify the events of the historical nature that's been out there. So, the Rotary Club is willing to donate, and they've already voted on and approved a matching funds of up to at least $25,000 for this project to be used with for this project. It's too big of a project for the Rotary Club to take on themselves. Probably needs a full-time staff member, and probably the city is the one that we kind of identified that might be the best one to take this on. So the project would entail getting easements, getting that property then annexed into the city, doing the engineering work, doing the paving, doing the beautification project, and then potentially turning that area over to the Parks Department and have it be included as a city park, and they can put it into their schedule how they empty trash cans and they do some cleanup and maintain their part of their department. So we've got some interested people here. We've got some Rotarians. We've got some people here from the Missouri String Team. I'm not sure who else we've got here, but if anybody from the Rotary or String Team would like to kind of speak to the project, we'd love to have you kind of talk to it.
Well, I think Larry Jones, one of the founders of the String Team here in Missouri. Been focusing for 5 years since we formed on the Mississippi River. And we have put the trash cans down the ferry. For 4 years in a row now on 4th of July, we take trash cans down to the marina. I've got nothing but good responses from people and push people in the right direction and seems to work. The trash is way less at the ferry, but the number one question I get asked, because I'm there all the time and I live on St. Mary's Road, people from out of town, our tourists, number one question is the river. We're going to go do something on the river. And I find it almost embarrassing that we're a river town and I can't tell them where to go. Well, maybe St. Louis. And we've had the drought issue, we have mosquitoes, but we don't offer anything as far as the river. And trying to keep the marina clean is a project that all the people that should be responsible seem to dodge it and push it to other people. So we, with the help of Dobbs Tires, is taking over 150 tires from us for free because they're big String Team supporters. You know, our last big cleanup, we had a lot more help from people. It's over just getting out there and being seen helps, but we need to offer something on we're a river town.
So who makes up the stream? The local volunteers? And
All volunteers.
And it's primarily efforts at keeping the riverbank cleaned up to...
And tributaries and, I took tires in that I took from a local derelict place, but I beat them to the river. But there's no access. People don't have money. They have no problems backing up and dumping them down a hill.
Right.
And we've approached people that were throwing their personal trash there. We just open it up and their mail's in there. We put on our Stream Team shirts and, well, I call it give them a get out of jail pass. We tell them, I don't know if you know what the people hauling your trash off are doing with it. And it's working. We thought it would take 4 years for people to notice what we were doing. And we're at 5. But there are a lot of people take it for granted. They don't know who's really doing that, but they know there's cans there and it's cleaner. We're going to try to get a boat instead of having volunteers use their boats. We had a boat on our last cleanup and brought in 3 times as much.
So the stream team would be in favor of doing this beautification and project down at the ferry landing?
Absolutely.
Ron?
Yeah, Joe, of course, the ferry, you guys own the ferry. The ferry's owned by the city of St. Genevieve and the county, and the 2 counties, Perryville and Perry County. So you guys actually own the ferry. So I think, and Mike Kurtz and Marion Kurtz and myself have looked after it for free for close to 30 years now, I guess, in the upper 20s. It's paid for, and the money that, the $500,000 that got to repair that ferry this past year and 2 or 3 months that it was down was all federal money. So the state had no money in it. But it's Tower Rock and Lure Brothers built the new ramp that's there back before the 250th in 84. We built that in 84. Charlie Herzog poured the concrete for free. This is the cost of the concrete, which at that time wasn't a whole lot to deal with that, but $30,000 or so is that was paid for. But there's people there every day. There's still people put boats in up there every day. It would be nice, and the Port Authority's engineer, Chris Kaler, would donate what it costs to get the permitting from the Corps of Engineers. So that's another few thousand that's donated there. But, it's a lot of people up there every day. Of course, I live right there above it, but I'm down there every day. But it's a lot of opportunity. And the other thing a lot of people don't know, that's the national hiking and biking trail crossing to the Mississippi River from Great River thing. So they come down the Illinois side, cross over, go down to Perry County, and cross back across and go down the Illinois side all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. But we've got people, even in the winter, from California, New York, wherever it crosses there. So you get a lot of exposure. So I think what the Rotary would look for, you've got to have somebody that would say that they go down there and clean it up. And the Kurtz boys and I, we've paid for it every year so far. But the city's always been great about helping. If they wasn't real busy, they'd run down there because it just takes a few hours to clean the mud off. But it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And there's already some people tore up a car or two down there just driving over the pieces of concrete and sticking. I think our thoughts were just to do concrete for whatever area it is, and whatever money we come up with, we could make that area. Anyway, little history there, but there is a right-of-way to a ferry landing, and the way I understand it now, with the city putting the sidewalks in to the ferry landing, you all control that. You had to trade off with Special Road or somebody, and you all take care of that because you just repaved it this past last year, I guess it was, or the year before.
We annex
And then the
all
county
the way up to the
takes
railroad
over
tracks.
once you cross.
Yeah.
So, I know you guys got a lot on your plate already, but it's just basic. I don't think they're going to spend very much money myself. I can't see it after dealing with it for years as we have. anyway.
Who actually owns that parcel of ground, Ron?
Do what?
The ferry landing is on, who actually?
In 1901 or so, when it was St. Louis, Memphis, and San Francisco Railroad had right away when they bought the county poor farm, and they gave a right of way for a road called Little Rock that goes up there, and a right of way to a ferry landing, because the lawyers tried to stop us from putting a new ramp in when we put it in. Mississippi Lime had always been gracious. I think Mississippi Lime will work with us. I think the railroad will. The roadmaster, he's in favor of it, but he doesn't have that say-so. It'd have to be their attorneys. So we stuck our money in a if I think right, Joe, we stuck it in for a year because we think it's going to take a while to get everything, all the right-of-ways and everything approved. If we can get somebody to sign off it, they'll clean it up. So.
About a third or a quarter of it is owned by Mississippi Lime, and probably the other 2/3 to 3/4 is owned by the railroad.
So that's this piece you've got,
Yellow.
kind of a yellow
Yes.
outline.
That was more just to highlight the
Yeah.
area that we're talking
Right.
about. So you see the other yellow lines at the top.
And that red is the city limits that comes, we annex that all the way up. So the city limits go right up to the railroad tracks, but of course
They
they
do
don't cross
already.
over. Yeah.
Right.
But they don't cross over.
So Joe, there's no project scope, budget, schedule yet?
We've done some just rough, trying to figure out some engineering and some paving. It's $150,000 project easily. Depends on how elaborate you go. We haven't had any engineering, and we had an architectural drawing done, but just kind of an artistic drawing. So until we get to the point where we have some partnership and a memorandum of agreement, we haven't done any hard numbers to try to figure out.
So very early in the
We're
game.
spitballing $100,000 to $150,000.
Well, you're socializing this almost like a request for $25,000 from the city to match that fund from the Rotary.
I don't know if that's what I'm asking for as far as money. I think the city should participate in the cost of it, but more importantly is helping manage the project.
Gotcha.
Because eventually, I think that we would like to have that property then annexed and managed by the city.
I think the Rotary's intentions were, we come up to 25,000, hoping some of the other civic organizations would come up with some money too. I don't think, like Joe said, we're not asking you for money, because I know you guys are strapped for money, but we need a sponsor or somebody that's going to make sure that it gets taken care of, it's cleaned up.
So, but you're talking about just an annexing to get it legal access into the city.
Yeah, I mean, because if we're going to ask the city to take care of the property, of course, it's going to have to come into city. Right now, technically, city police officers can't go across the railroad tracks and perform their traditional duties right now because it's technically county ground, and so the city department can't even technically go across the railroad tracks.
Right now, because the city can't go in there and get the trash cans that we supply, they've given us access to their dumpster, so we regularly rotate the cans and we're using the city dumpster. And it takes everybody working together to make something like this happen, but I mean, you can count on the screen team still being there at all levels of keeping it clean. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's a very unique project. There's a lot of different moving parts to it. But, I mean, if you think about when you come into St. Genevieve from Highway 32 or Highway 61 or south on 61, you have a pretty nice entrance when you come into town. When you come across the ferry and you get off there, it's not any reflection of the ferry itself. It's a reflection of the property up there, and it's an embarrassment. If you can talk to any other Rotarians or anybody else in town, if somebody asks you when they're coming into town, where's the river, you're embarrassed because you say, do I want to send them to the marina where it's kind of private property and it's trashed all the time, or you can send them to the ferry landing where it's also an embarrassment to what we have to offer. So I can envision kind of like the sign we have down by the 4th Street Bridge. I can see like a nice sign, welcome to St. Genevieve there. Just a paved parking lot with a couple benches. Nothing elaborate, but just something that welcomes people and it's not an embarrassment to the city.
Joe,
I mean-
the state of Missouri pays $88,000 a year to help keep the ferry running. And then there's funds that we found a year or two ago that the feds then put in extra money what it loses, because it does not make money. Maybe a month or two out in the summer it's close. But it's unbelievable how many people cross it to the water park. It really is. We couldn't believe how many people from Illinois, because their closest access to water park is either Cape Girardeau or Collinsville. So you get a lot of people from all the way from Redbud and over in there. It's we've got people every day, and they'll buy a round trip ticket even though they stay over here later. Maybe they go to Sarah's after, or go eat lunch here, or do something, and then they come back the next day. You know, to get a little bit of break in their costs. But it's I could give you those numbers, but because we keep track of them. There's a lot of people cross every day when the water park's open.
Why would the federal government invest $500,000 into a
It's a
ferry?
transportation issue. All the big ferries in the whole United States are subsidized. Most people don't know that, by millions of dollars, because they don't make it, and they're subsidized. Just like
Part of interstate commerce or things like that, transportation.
we keep track and turn in whether they're tourists or we've got track of all the farm equipment, heavy equipment, everything that crosses that ferry is individualized and it's reported each month
To the federal.
state and federal. And Illinois, we thought we was going to get a match finally because they've been matching Cave Rock, that is a private entity. It's not even a port authority, and they've been putting $1 million. Well, they put a little over $100,000 a year, and Kentucky matches that too. And that ferry has become free. And we thought we were in this year, but the governor cut it out at the last minute. Our senator had finally to get a match from Illinois. Missouri's paid for Herb Fowler and Danny Staples got that going back several years ago after the city and the county took possession of the ferry.
Sounds like a neat project. I can't imagine having dealt with Union Pacific recently and stuff. The outcome wasn't good. Not only dealing with Union Pacific there, but ours, but also I can't imagine that not being a monumental task and stuff, and then all the other entities and stuff. It sounds like a neat project. I mean, you know, and I guess you're talking about a paved parking lot with a few benches and stuff. You're talking about something pretty easy to contain.
That's the goal, just to make it attractive but simple.
The only thing that makes that landing look good is the Illinois side.
It's pretty rough over there too.
Steve, is that something we can maintain with current people, or?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Steve Wilson?
Steve Reliance or something.
It would depend on what was constructed.
You know, I talked to Steve today, I was kind of concerned. I went out to Point Base and see what they had done in that whole ditch area. And I hadn't realized that when we swapped the property with the church, we inherited that whole ditch all the way out, you know, to the industrial park and stuff. And that's something that's got to maintain, and I keep adding things like that. And in plain time, there could be some incidental costs that we have to add to maintain things and stuff. But it does sound like a neat project. Appreciate you.
That's the ask, is that the city would get involved, manage the project. I think the Rotary and some of the other clubs and corporate organizations could be solicited for donations to fund the project. But I think the biggest ask is for the city to manage the project, to get some numbers together for it so we can start seeing what, maybe sign a memorandum of understandings of the scope of the work and how it would be. So again, I'm not necessarily asking for the funding, but the management of the project.
So you want commitment that you would have a project manager?
And that would include, setting it up, annexing it, turning it over to potentially city parks.
Right now, I mean, 6 months down the road, it's like, how we're, what's right, but you understand that.
Can we actually manage a project that's not on city property?
As long as you don't mind allocating time for that individual to work on it, because eventually it will become a city park.
It's like the stormwater retention pond we're working on now.
If we got the county to give the same support that we consider it, financial, resource wise.
I think it's the expertise on some of this, and I think having the engineer from the Port Authority system, we have worked with the Corps of Engineers, mostly because of the levy. That is a tricky situation. So we need somebody to help with that, because I don't have that experience. But we can try to manage it. The mayor also wanted me to pass along. He said, I think this could be an amazing project and one that would beautify another artery into our city. I understand that it's a bit of a logistical challenge. That is something that the city could potentially help facilitate through our channels. I'm saying we should spearhead the project, but any help and or guidance we can provide, whether it's monetary or otherwise, would be extremely worthwhile. So that's his support.
So you talked about the engineer participating in it, but I mean, that's something the engineer would be willing to set up a complete blueprint for this thing and what needs to be paved and how it needs to be paved, kind of a design also.
Within limits, I think what he was offering is, especially up front, like, if you've got a drawing, at least you can visualize it. And it depends on how much time you can call after that. There may be a cost for the engineering itself, for the design drawings, and for the sequence. Maybe not, I may be wrong, but I think at some point it's going to become cumbersome for all individuals. And they may volunteer time.
So are we also taking on the liability of that ramp?
I don't think so. I think the ramp, Ron, do you want to speak to that?
I don't know what he asked. He can't hear because of that plan up there. You can't hear hardly anything.
He talked about the ramp itself and the ferry operation. You guys have your own insurance and your own liability coverage for ferry operations.
Right.
So I don't think that would change.
$38,000 a year. It was $28,000 last year. There's only one or two companies left in the whole United States that don't even insure. So part of our insurance is covered by federal. We have to carry $9 million because of crossing with liquids with like gasoline, diesel, stuff like that. We have to carry a $9 million policy as part of it. But, you know, there's been very little. I'm not saying who knows what the river's going to do with the situation we've got now with the drought, but I can't recall that in my 30-some years of messing with it that we've had to clean up down there over 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 at the most.
You're talking about like mud from flooding and things like that?
They usually put 3 or 4 inches of that stuff on there. And normally we went down there because Tower Rocco is furnished. When I was running the place, I could get the backhoes for free. And we just pile it up and people would haul the dirt off. It'd be a lot easier to clean because it's cleaned down deep now. So it's into the old natural ground down there now. I don't think it's not in that. You're not obstructing the floodplain. So I don't look for a great deal of cost in it. And again, Chris Kaler said he would donate his engineering fee to help because of all the work that he does for us. So
And you think minimum amount of Corps of Engineer involvement?
He doesn't see that there being a problem because you're not blocking any of the river. You're not messing up the floodplain. Maybe speed it up a little bit or something out there.
Yeah. Have to put up a dike.
Yeah. But we just spent $38,000 adding on to that last 40-footer ramp down there, because that's how we damaged the ferry boat before, was loading heavy farm equipment and stuff and fertilizer when the river was low and we was out of ramp. The boat club had actually, back when the ferry didn't run for a couple, 3 years till the new one was built, the boating club themselves just went in there and throwed a little bit of everything in there. We cleaned all that out, and when the river was low back in February, and spent $30-some thousand of federal money and state money and fixed it up. We actually moved it out of the road because the sheriff asked me the other day if we was going to move the ferry, and I said, no, we don't have no place to put it unless we took it to the marina. He'd like to have that ramp open, but we opened it up when the ferry was gone and boaters used it. But they were putting in boats today right there downstream from us.
So Joe, of the project partners, is it the only option or is it the best option that the city manage the project, own the project itself? I mean, is there expertise?
You tell me. I don't know. I'm just trying to think that this is going to be something that's going to. There's a lot of different entities involved, and it's almost going to need somebody. You know,
To help facilitate.
Yeah, it probably. I mean, I don't think anybody in the Rotary Club or the Lions Club or the Chamber or has the capacity to keep this project going on a usable timeline, whereas the city has staffing to potentially manage this in a somewhat usable time frame.
After a tourism director comes on board, I would say,
Yeah.
right? I mean, at a minimum, you couldn't even consider that right now, could you?
Right, no.
So.
I mean, I can consider it,
Well,
but, I mean, yeah, we probably have the best resources for that type of to manage it, watch it.
So that is City Street all the way up to the railroad tracks?
Just change the use not be, but then with that city
We put
sidewalk,
that sidewalk
we got,
in.
we had to annex all the way up there to get that. There weren't any property owners, so it's fairly easy to bring it in, so.
so then Joe, if the city owns it, then.
We would probably have easements for access to
Well,
it.
I mean, if ownership of the project,
Yeah.
then we're gonna develop a project budget. We're gonna develop
I think that
timeline.
memorandum of understanding would spell that out, and so yes,
Okay.
I think then, that I think the city would have a lot of say in how that would look. Yeah, however you wrote up that agreement, I think the city could, craft that, so that they had, so that everyone was in agreement to how it was supposed to look,
I know we're stretched a little thin now to take care of the facilities we do have. That's why I brought up the point of some point in time we may have to increase some staff or something to do that. I think the project has definitely got merit and stuff. As long as it can be simple, easy, maintained. But Ron, you said this was the ferry was help funded by because it is a transportation. In other words, that's how traffic gets through here. Personally myself, I wouldn't be opposed to asking the county, because those people are coming in not only to the city, they're coming into the county and all other places and stuff, within the county.
I think there's a lot of groups that would love to
Right.
participate in this. I think a lot of the groups know that it's the biggest public eyesore that we have.
Right.
I can't think of a bigger eyesore that we have. There's private places, of course, we can complain about, but as a public, open space, I don't know where we have a bigger eyesore. And for the amount of money, I think we would get a large return. And like you said, maybe getting the county involved because, I didn't even know that, Ron, about that many people coming over just to go to the water park. I mean, that kind of makes sense, but never even thought about that.
I can tell you that I get questions every week from tourists. Where can we go see the river? Ones that did not come in from the Illinois side. I'm embarrassed to say, well, pretty ugly.
The city and county has the most to gain by doing this, improve tourism, and make people want to come back.
Well, and local people would use it too. I mean, they go down there. People go down every day to see the river.
I wonder if it became part of the city, then it would affect the city police department. And that could help improve the area too, to give, you know, a little more, with everybody working together again.
Any realistic timeline to,
The biggest hurdle will be getting those easements
Right.
from Mississippi Lime and the railroad. Well, that'll probably be the biggest, because then after that, it's just paving a parking lot, right?
Right.
You know, but I think the biggest hurdle will be if we do decide to annex it in. There's nobody who lives there, so there's nobody gets to vote on it. So it'll be a friendly annexation. So that'll be fairly in-house, easy process. I don't want to say easy, but so the biggest thing will be getting those 2 easements from those 2 current property owners where we want to put that parking lot area. And once you get that, I think it's fairly easy. It's doing the engineering and paving a parking lot and putting in some benches.
so have you made like a rough sketch of the area or what?
We have a drawing. Actually, I should have brought it. But
Right.
it's kind of an artistic drawing of it. But I mean, it's just it's an odd shape because the way that parking lot is down there. But it's kind of a trapezoid shape, and it's just it's parking lot. I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to minimize it, but it just it's just something that there's some trees and some. Like I said, benches and tables and trash cans and a couple trees, just for simple reasons.
And Senator Bryant hasn't given up. She's going to go right back again. She's from Carbondale. She's going to go right back in this next session and back for the money. What she asked for was $1 million, which is for 10 years. That's $100,000 a year for 10 years.
Is that just for operations? Would that
That's
be just for operations? Okay.
Yeah, the fair.
So we couldn't steal any of that money for improvements?
I don't know. Probably not.
Is there any other business?
It's kind of included in all of this, but when the boats used to come over to St. Genevieve, which they haven't done in 2 or 3 years now, they dock in Chester. And if you've ever gone to the Chester waterfront, there's nothing there. They just pull over and it's gravel and stuff, and they put an anchor out and throw a ramp down, and their people come off, and they get the ones that want the premium tour, they get on a bus and they come to St. Genevieve and they go back. Well, over the years we got better and better at things, and then the coronavirus came along, and so for a couple of years they just came, in a mask, and they didn't get out of any place except to go to the church, to go to a house, and to get on the road and go back. But when they didn't come back, they were going to be here on 11 different occasions, and they were told not to come because they didn't think that was not enough tourist things, not enough tourism to make it worth our while. These are people that can afford a trip down the Mississippi River on a riverboat queen,
Yeah.
which is a lot of money, and they want to shop here. The 11 groups that were coming, they then put in time for them to eat here, to shop here, to spend their whole day doing whatever they wanted to do, and they were told not to come
Like who?
by the tourism director. And I'd like to see them come back, and I like to see them dock here, because if they dock here, the rest of the people on the boat can then come into town, look around, spend their money, go to the shops, eat a meal here, whatever they want to do, but they spend their money. So as we're talking about the riverfront being fixed up, it doesn't take much to get a riverfront that you could then dock that boat at. And I was there one morning, and one of the aldermen from Chester was out there, and she said, "Oh, I just volunteered to come down and do it this time." They hook up to a sewer, and they hook up to a water system.
But they don't have to.
But they don't have to. They said they just do it because there's an easy access there. But she said they don't have to, and sometimes they don't. So we don't need to have access to sewerage or for water. But we just need to have that someplace where they can dock.
Looks like an eyeball sticking out of the ground.
Yeah.
Chester.
Yeah, that's all it is. And And then they have buses. They have buses that have American Queen on the side of it. And those not going on a premium tour that goes out of town, they have these buses that go around the town all day. The people have their little chains on with their name on it, and so they can get on and off the buses all day long, so they're not inconvenienced. They don't have to walk from the ferry to get into town. They can just come in and go and spend their time and spend their money. And it's a win-win for us. And then they come back later with their friends and their family.
Any other questions or questions?
That's all I got. Thank you for you guys entertaining the conversation.